There was a time when the sound of wooden staffs clashing and bare feet slamming against stone floors was his entire world. The temple courtyard smelled of incense and sweat, and every morning before the sun broke over the mountains, he was already there, standing in horse stance, his body trembling but his mind still. He was the boy who never complained, the one who stayed behind after training to sweep the floor just to be closer to his masters. Back then, everyone in the village whispered his name with pride. He was going to be the next great Shaolin warrior. For years, he devoted himself to discipline. No luxury, no family visits, no distractions, only the pursuit of perfect movement. His hands were callous, his back straight, his heart set on protecting the art passed down for centuries. The world outside didn't matter to him. He thought the temple would always be his home. But life has a way of changing even the strongest. One winter, funding for the temple's training program ran dry. Tourists came less. Donations shrank, and slowly, one by one, the young monks left to find other work. He stayed as long as he could, even taking on extra chores to keep the place running. But the day came when the headmaster placed a gentle hand on his shoulder and told him it was time to leave. With no saving, no connections, and no clear plan, he wandered. The streets were not like the temple. Here, discipline meant nothing unless you could pay the rent. He worked odd jobs, cleaning, carrying goods, even unloading crates at the market. It was during one of these jobs that he met an old man running a tea stall. The man needed help, and he needed food. It wasn't glamorous, but it was survival. Years passed. Now, if you walk down that narrow street at dawn, you'll find him there. No robe, no staff, no temple bell. Just a worn-out shirt rolled up at the sleeves, pouring steaming cups of tea for the early risers. The walls of the stall are lined with faded photographs. Him in midair kicks, staff in hand, eyes blazing with determination. Customers point to the photos and ask, "Is that really you?" He smiles, sometimes laughs, and says, "Yes, that was me." But in his heart, he knows the discipline never left him. The temple may be gone, but every cup of tea he pours, every smile he gives, carries the quiet strength of a Shaolin monk. He grew up in the chaos of Hong Kong's narrow backstreets, where laundry swayed between buildings and the smell of street food filled the air. While other boys played marbles or chased each other in the alleys, he spent his afternoons with bruised knuckles, pounding away at the wooden dummy in the corner of his father's repair shop. His uncle, a retired fighter, taught him the basics of Wing Chun. Fast hands, strong stance, no wasted movement. By the time he was 16, his punches were sharp enough to knock a soda can clean off a table without spilling a drop. People said he could have been a champion if he entered tournaments. But life in the alleys wasn't kind to dreams. His family had debts, his father's health was failing, and someone had to take responsibility. The years rolled on, and martial arts competitions were replaced by part-time jobs, carrying boxes, fixing radios, anything that paid enough to cover rent. Still, every so often, he would sneak down to the alley, set up the wooden dummy, and practice under the dim yellow streetlight, just for himself. Then came an unexpected turn. A small rural school outside the city was looking for anyone who could teach discipline and basic literacy. He didn't have a degree, but the principal saw something in his eyes, a quiet authority, the kind that comes from years of training. Today, he stands in front of a blackboard, wearing a faded shirt patched at the elbows, teaching children how to read and write. The classroom has no glass windows, just wooden shutters, and the benches creak with every shift. On one wall, a single photograph shows him as a young man, mid-punch, focused and fierce. The children love that photo. They beg him to show them the fast hands after class. He smiles, rolls up his sleeves, and shows them a few moves. It's not a tournament. It's not the big stage, but every time he teaches them, whether it's math or a basic block, he feels that same quiet satisfaction. His arena is different now, but the fight is still in him. He wasn't always old. There was a time when his movements were so fluid that people said he looked like water flowing over stones. In the early mornings, Miss curled over the lake, and there he would be, eyes half closed, arms rising and falling in slow, deliberate arcs. Tai Chi was not just exercise for him. It was meditation, a way of breathing life in and out. For decades, He taught anyone who was willing to learn, from farmers to shopkeepers. He believed Tai Chi wasn't about winning fights. It was about balance, both inside and out. His small class grew, and for a time, it was the heart of the community. But as the younger generation left for the cities, fewer students came. The lake became quieter. He kept going, but eventually his own knees began to ache, and his breath came shorter. The morning practice sessions grew shorter, the movements slower. One day, without realizing it, he stopped teaching altogether. Now he spends his days under the shade of the big tree in the village square, wearing an old sweater with holes at the cuffs. Children gather around him, not for Tai Chi lessons, but for stories. Tales of how a slow movement could stop a fast punch, or how balance could change the outcome of a fight before it began. Sometimes, when no one is watching, he stands and begins the opening posture of the form, his hands rising just as they did all those years ago. And for a brief moment, the lake, the mist, and the young man he once was all return. She was just a girl from a small village, but the way she moved a spear could silence an entire crowd. Her father made her first training spear from bamboo, and she would practice until the moon was high, twirling and striking with precision. By 17, she had won local tournaments, wearing the same red outfit her mother stitched by hand. She dreamed of competing at the national level, but the journey was expensive, and her family could barely afford to keep food on the table. She tried to keep training while working odd jobs, but the gap between dreams and reality grew wider each year. Eventually, she hung up her spear. She needed income, not medals. She moved to the city and set up a vegetable stall in the market. The work was hard, the hours long, but it was honest. Now, in a faded floral blouse and worn skirt, she calls out prices to passers-by. Some regular customers know her past and ask her to show the spin. She laughs, picks up a broom handle, and for a few seconds, the market noise fades as she spins it in a perfect arc. The crowd claps and she smiles. The champion is still there, just hidden under the layers of everyday life. In the 1980s, he was fearless. A low-budget film set, a shaky wooden scaffold, no safety wires. That was his life. He was a guy who jumped from rooftops, crashed through tables, and still managed to bow at the end of the take. The pay was small, but the thrill was priceless. For years, he lived on instant noodles and adrenaline. He dreamed of breaking into big-budget films, but as younger, flashier stuntmen arrived, his calls came less often. One bad fall left him with a limp that never fully healed. Work dried up. He went home. He married, had children, and traded the chaos of film sets for the quiet rhythm of village life. Now, wearing a plain torn shirt and slippers, he sits on his porch, holding a faded black-and-white photo of himself mid-jump. His grandchildren run around, pretend to fight like in the movies. He laughs and joins in, slow and careful, but with the same spark in his eyes. The stuntman is gone, but the man remains, and in the laughter of his grandchildren, the old fire still burns.